Never mind, never mind. Last name ever, first name greatest. Like a sprained ankle, boy, ain't nothing to play with. I'm in the street, I hear
Men down. Where you from?
Hello and welcome to the special presentation by ESPN, The Power of Physics, the Basketball Edition. Now, basketball has changed so much since James Naismith invented the sport in 1891 in Boston. However, the sport may have changed, but the physics involved have been nearly the same since the creation. Anyone with some basic knowledge of physics could tell you that there are forces in basketball, but many probably do not know how they apply to the sport itself. The sport is hard enough without physics, but once you understand the concepts and ideas, you may become a better player as a whole. NBA players such as KD, Paul George for you Pacers fans, and my favorite and the best basketball player of our generation, Kobe Bryant, are all masters of physics because they know how physics applies to basketball and has made them the elite players they are today. Now, basketball has mainly four major components: passing, shooting, dribbling, and the random physics that apply to a player or the ball itself. Alright, let's start off with passing. In today's society of basketball, that rarely happens, whether it be the NBA or high school basketball, because we have the biggest ball hogs ever known to man. However, we have decent point guards who do pass the ball, and the physics in that are fairly simple. The equation for passing the ball is force equals mass times velocity, which is all divided by time, where the larger the time, the less force will be applied on the ball, and therefore it will be easier for someone to catch it. If the time was shorter, that means the force is greater. It will be much harder for a person to catch than a lightly thrown ball. In the game of basketball, the players have to throw it kind of fast as to not have the ball stolen and therefore require much force to pass that ball. While the ball has to be thrown hard, it does not mean it will be impossible to catch. The receiving player, the one who is catching the ball, has to catch the ball with his arms bent. It doesn't have to be a specific degree, it's wherever they're comfortable. This is due to the fact that the ball has momentum, as you can see, but to stop the forward momentum of the ball, if the elbows are bent, that means they should absorb the force of the incoming ball, and the ball will be caught around or near the chest, if done properly. I talked about momentum, which is divided by time, resulting in a smaller net force, if the time is increased, which will make it fairly easy to catch. Also, when passing the basketball, you cannot just pass straight at the person if they're moving across the floor. If you do that, the ball will fall right behind them. However, you have to pass in front of him because motion is relative. Here's where Newton's first law applies, that an object will remain in motion unless acted upon by outside forces. So if you throw it at a moving person, the ball is not going to curve like a heat-seeking missile and go right at the person. So whenever you're passing the ball to a moving object or throwing it, always throw it in front of the person so with the velocity they have, they'll eventually catch it if executed properly. To put all that simply, the physics in catching the ball are fairly simple. All a person, or even a normal person, has to do is catch the ball with his arms bent to reduce the force of an incoming ball and pass it in front of a person if they're moving. The topic we're going to talk about is probably the most entertaining part of basketball and the most frustrating for players at times, which is shooting the ball. Now, there are two shots that I'm going to be talking about today, although there are many more: the jump and my personal favorite, the dunk. When shooting a jump shot, there is very little horizontal movement, while it's mostly composed of vertical movement. This is because you're jumping straight up and shooting the ball. You're not jumping forward, although that might happen a little. It's just minute. To shoot a jump shot, you need to bend your legs in order to compress them, and then push off the ground as hard as you can. Here comes Newton's third law, which you guys may know, which is that for every action, there's an opposite reaction. So the harder you push on the ground, the harder the ground will push on you, and the higher you will go up in the air. There is also a factor of potential and kinetic energies. When holding the ball in your hands, you only have potential energies, but that is changing actually when you're in compressed mode, as you can see. When compressed, your legs are creating kinetic energy, and when you jump, the ball has to release at the apex, or the highest point. When released at the apex, all the potential energy you have is changed into kinetic instantaneously by your muscles, and the ball enters into shot mode. When the ball has left the player's hands, you can see there is no force acting on it except for gravity. This means you cannot shoot directly at the rim, because if you do, then gravity will come into play and will bring the ball down, and it will not hit. To actually make a shot, shoot a little bit above the net, and the gravity will help it come down at a constant speed of 9.8 meters per second squared. Acceleration. This makes the ball become a projectile and have a parabolic curve, as Steve Nash will show you in a few minutes. Now that we were done with the boring stuff, let's get to the interesting stuff, the dunking. Now, the physics in this type of shot are a little more complicated because there's two components, horizontal and vertical. Now, the player has to do both at the same time by using his momentum of running forward and pushing off with 1 or 2 feet to reach the rim. However, to make a good dunk, you have to start a little bit before, which is common sense, and so you can actually hit the shot. This time, however, the ball isn't a projectile. In fact, the whole player himself becomes a projectile because there's only one force acting upon him, which is gravity, and the player is traveling in a parabolic shape. The same physics apply in the dunk as a jump shot, which is Newton's third law of opposite reaction when the player jumps up. Except now it's going to the rim, not shooting from afar, the 3-point line or the free throw line. The physics are simple in shooting, and there's absolutely nothing complicated about it. I hope I explained it well to you. Thank you.
This is how we do. We make a move and act the fool while we up in the club.
Kick out to Williams.
Here comes the y'all don't really want it like here comes the
You can be good at shooting. You can be good at passing. But to be a GOAT, greatest of all time, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, you also have to be good at dribbling the basketball, which is the fundamentals. The physics in dribbling are pretty simple, as there are only 3 concepts to it. First, a ball has to have good grip to dribble, which means the coefficient of friction has to be high in order to stick to the ground when cutting and when the ball is coming up to the player's hand. Second thing, the ball needs to have air in it, fully pumped if possible. This is because when you bounce the ball, at a point when the ball hits the ground, it becomes flat at one point, although it will have a circular shape still, but the bottom will be flat. Now, this is because the air particles in the ball are coming close together, and instantaneously the pressure releases, causing the ball to fly upwards. This phenomenon is also Newton's third law of opposite reaction, which I've explained. The harder you throw the ball on the ground, the higher the ball goes up in the air. Now, the final concept of physics in dribbling is that of the energies. There's potential energy when the ball is ready to go down. So you have it, it's right here, it's coming down. There's potential energy right there when there's a specific height. And there is also kinetic energy when the ball is in motion when it's bouncing and coming up. So when you hit it down, it's gonna be in kinetic mode because it's moving. This happens instantaneously, and most people don't even know. Players aren't gonna know that they're switching from potential to kinetic when they're playing basketball. All they care about is making the shot, making the pass. Alright, now everything I've said so far is most likely known to all of you, but there are some things in basketball that many do not know. Now we'll start with that.
In the legs. That's right, kids at home. You can look at this and love it. Behind the back, right to left. That means you have to be able to dribble with both hands, right in and out. To a left hand,
I had
in
a
and out.
dream I could
Step
buy my
back.
way to
Look at
heaven.
him when he
When I
falls.
awoke,
Come
I
on, you're
slid
not
that
far,
on a
you're not close enough.
necklace.
Sorry, young boy.
Now, there are also some unlikely components of basketball and physics, besides the normal shooting, passing, and dribbling. The huge part of this is having the right equipment, especially basketball shoes. Now, there's a reason why basketball shoes were invented, because otherwise people would be playing in random shoes that have nothing to do with the sport, like running shoes. Basketball shoes were specifically invented to have good traction, which means the coefficient of friction between the shoe and the ground will be high and have to be high. This helps players cut easy and change direction even more quickly if they had some other random shoe. However, having a great coefficient also is a bad is a bad thing sometimes because it might break your ankles. I'll show you how. There is also static friction that the player uses in playing basketball. This helps the player stop without sliding halfway across the court. There is also this phenomenon that many people believe that NBA players defy gravity, such as LeBron James, Gerald Green, and Nate Robinson for their dunks. But all these players fall at the same rate at 9.8 meters per second squared. All they do is create an illusion like a magician by spreading their arms up and bringing their knees to their chest. Now, when they do this, it's an illusion. It makes them look like they're in the air longer, but they're really not. It's just simple stuff.
What's a mob to a king? What's a king to a god? What's a god to a non-believer?
At the end of the day, there are a lot of forces in basketball that are present. I just gave you a brief overview and then some. However, when you're playing this sport, it doesn't matter about the physics. No one is going to stop, call a timeout, measure their distance, figure out their velocity to shoot the game-winning shot. It is all muscle memory. Sure, the physics in basketball can help you understand the game a lot better than most people and is a valuable asset if you know how the shot should be shot. But it isn't very practical to figure that stuff out on the sidelines or on the bench. All you need to be good at this sport and any other sport is practice. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this special presentation powered by ESPN, The Power of Physics, the basketball edition. Thank you.
Young Money. Yeah.